Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another exciting episode of the First Things Furst Podcast.
As always, we're so excited that you guys have decided to join us for another exciting episode. This is still Bonnie.
And this is still Amanda.
We are still your hosts. So for today's episode, we have a very, very exciting and interesting guest. We have a person who grew up in a farm, first and foremost, a person who decided to be a vet nurse, and she works at one of the biggest vet hospitals. We're just so excited to dive deep into who she is and her experience with pets. So, drum roll please. Anmari.
Hi. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you guys doing?
We're so good, thank you.
So, Amanda has already mentioned you grew up in a farm. Please just take us through that route.
Yeah, so I grew up on a dairy farm. It's obviously a very hands-on kind of thing. We very rarely went on holiday, and when we did, it was only for like 5 days at a time. So I spent most of my youth on a farm, working with animals. We had pets, we had rescue pets of sorts, we had cows, obviously, and then we had crops. So yes, grew up in a dairy sort of yard most of my life, and we had dogs, and then we had geese. Well, we had a goose, and then we had a burgoat, much to my mother's dismay, who chowed all her roses. Yeah, so I think that's where it all probably started, is right there from when I can remember. Just always been ingrained in me.
That animals are life.
The animals, yeah.
So I'd assume you don't even remember when you started falling in love with animals.
No, look, my dad has also always been an animal lover, and I think that obviously had a huge impact on how I sort of started this whole process. And he's always, I think, guided me to a great extent to go into the animal direction. And yeah, forever grateful, because I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. Okay?
It's the best thing ever. But do you have pets of your own?
Yes, so I have 2 cats. Technically, I have 4 cats, but only 2 of them live with me. 2 of them are my own pets. I have a boy and a girl cat, Klaus and Moxie. And then we have 2 practice cats, who are basically my own children. I basically birthed them. Spring Roll and Nori. 2 silly little geese, but they are the cutest. We bottle fed them. Also bottle fed Klaus. Moxie came to me a little bit older, but not much older. But yeah, so always have cats around me.
Mother of 4.
Yeah, basically it's a full-time job, really.
They keep you awake all night,
all night, especially like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's great. It's so nice.
You enjoy it.
The best, really, motherhood.
The dream.
Living the dream.
I'm sure everyone would be curious. What inspired you to become a nurse? And people would also be curious, where do you actually work? Like, which vets are you working at?
Okay, so I currently work at Veterinary Hospital in Pietermaritzburg. My inspiration will probably be much the same as my falling in love with animals. I think when I was in grade 10ish and you need to start choosing subjects and it becomes really real really quickly, I actually met one of the only nurses I knew of, because not a lot of people know that this is actually a thing, to be perfectly honest with you. And I met a lovely nurse that lived in Bloem, and my dad said, let's go talk to her, because if it's not vet, if it's not sort of animal science, then there has to be other options. And I went to go speak to her, and she was such a lovely human being. And I think at that point I'm like, I don't want to be a vet. I want to do the nurse thing, because it sounds so much nicer. And I think everyone always says, I want to be a vet, or I want to go into the veterinary industry because I don't want to work with people. Such a huge misconception. But if that is really how you feel, I think nursing is kind of the way to go, because you're a little more behind the scenes.
Yes. You can hide.
You can hide. You can hide where anyone else probably can't hide as well. So yeah, I think that's where it all started. That's where the inspo came from. Shout out to her, because
Shout out to you.
Yeah, such an amazing lady, and that really, really just changed it. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, vet nurse is not a very common career choice. So if you had to explain to somebody what it is to be a vet nurse, what would you say?
So I think the clearest sort of comparison would probably be human nurses, because it's sort of on the same track where you do most of the behind the scenes things. So you draw the bloods, you take the x-rays, you do the dentals, you extract the little teeth, you do all those little things that people don't necessarily think about. You medicate the dogs, you put them on fluids, you do the behind the scenes work. And you obviously assist in surgeries, and that's also really good, but I think you do a lot of the things people in human nurses would do, where you'd be sort of at that patient's bedside most of the day, and that kind of sets you apart, I think, from the vets as well, because you do the little things and you spend more time with the patients, and it's really rewarding at the end of the day. Yeah.
And you fall in love.
Yes, too much.
Over and over and over again.
All the time.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's like a new one now.
Yeah.
Every baby that comes in there just ends up being your baby.
So for someone who doesn't know in terms of veterinary world, like take us through a typical day in the clinic.
Okay.
And I know you guys don't have one branch, right? You have multiple branches.
Yeah.
So take us through that day. How does it feel like?
So it's obviously different in every clinic and in every branch. So we, at the main branch in Pietermaritzburg, we start our days off relatively early. We start at 7, and then you have your inpatient rounds where you see your inpatients, and then the day sort of gets going where your surgeries come in and you get into theatre and you monitor the anaesthetic and you recover your patients, and that's sort of what you do most of the morning, sometimes actually well into the afternoon depending on how the day goes. And then in between that, you obviously do the medical workup, so you draw the blood, you take the x-rays, you do all those little things, and then at the end of the day, as it winds down, you do your inpatient rounds again in the evening, and in between all that, you obviously also check up on your patients sort of non-stop and make sure that the fluids are running and that they have food and that they're comfortable. So that's sort of a typical day. It'll differ from branch to branch in our case as well, because some of our branches don't necessarily have inpatient, some of our branches are only open a few days of the week. So it differs from branch to branch, and it'll differ from clinic to clinic as well. Yeah, so that's sort of how it goes on our side. Don't think there is such a thing as a typical day.
True.
Which is the beauty of veterinary medicine, because it's always different and you always see something new. But that's sort of how our routine would go on a daily basis.
That is how you'd like it to go.
Yes, that is the organised chaos I would prefer.
You did say that you work very closely with the vet, but what are some of the significant differences between your role as a nurse and the vet?
So, for starters, nurses are obviously not allowed to make diagnoses, to prescribe treatment plans, all those kind of things. We obviously aren't allowed to do major surgery, nothing like that. But we are the supportive team. So our main role and our main difference is that we are always there for support. So if the vet needs help, if a kennel assistant needs help, sort of we are the supportive team running sort of the back of the house, making sure everything stays on schedule, making sure everyone is happy, making sure, everything moves as smoothly as possible. So we sort of decide who goes into theatre, obviously with the vets going with us through the theatre list. We decide when things happen, how we draw blood, when we take the x-rays, who we sedate next, just so that we can keep things moving. So that's probably mostly our difference, is we support the vets. Where they come in and they do their consults and they bring the patients back and they prescribe a treatment plan, we make sure that what they want done actually gets done.
And you being a vet nurse, you've already mentioned that you work closely with kennel hands and vets as well. But just tell us about a day where you really felt proud as a vet nurse, like something that you've done, like a moment that you've went through and you be like, okay.
Yeah. So it's a really tough one, and I think every day you'd feel proud to do what you do. But if I had to choose a specific occasion, it would have been last year sometime, we had a string of parvo puppies come in, and I think in the industry you also know parvo is not a nice thing to deal with. And there was this specific puppy that I got really attached to, and the guy ended up going home to his family, and that's, I think, the best thing when you get to send those patients home and the kids are there and everyone is happy and everyone's like, oh, thank you so much, and you stay like, yeah,
I did that.
Obviously there was a lot involved, but you know, yes, that does make you proud. So I think, so I think it's all the little things that happens sort of day to day, and all the people who look at you, and like people come up and hug you, and you discharge the dog for something simple like a sterilization. That makes you feel really, really happy and really, really proud of what you're doing, because you know you're making a difference.
Yeah.
I can imagine those thank yous from the pet parents. Like, thank you so much.
Really the best feeling. It's the best feeling.
Say the thank you, guys. We need the thank you.
Say the thank you.
They mean the world to us.
Your vets need the thank you.
Yes. Even for an animal care expression. Thank you so much.
Because it's the worst.
Obviously, not all cases have happy endings. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the industry. So in cases where you deal with heartbreaking cases, how do you stay emotionally grounded?
Something I learned too late, but it's super important to have really good boundaries. We're obviously very trained in our clinical skills, but we aren't very good with our soft skills, and you get so attached, and I think it's very important not to lose perspective of who you're actually doing this for, because we often get so involved in wanting something to work out, and sometimes it's not meant to work out. So it's very important not to lose perspective of the patient who's in front of you, and that does end up making whatever decision you make a little bit easier, because if you think of it a little bit more clinically, you can actually understand that maybe this hard decision is the best decision. Yeah, absolutely.
So with the podcast being hopefully worldwide,
international,
definitely.
I'm sure we'd have pet parents that are also curious. What routes should their kids take if they also want to become vet nurses, or qualifications that are needed for their kids to become vet nurses? Or maybe even the pet parents who are sitting at home watching and very curious or liking the task that you're doing on a not so typical day. So maybe just take us through that route, like what's the right procedure? So
I just want to start off by saying it's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are, just go for it, whatever it is. But so starting off with subjects in school, when I qualified, or before I started being a nurse or studying to be a nurse, you had to have biology, science, and obviously maths and English. Don't know if that's changed in the interim, I don't think it has. So that's sort of where you start, because if you don't have those, you have to do like a bridge year or something like that just to get you on the right track. With regards to nursing qualifications, when I studied, it was only a diploma, it's been a diploma at that stage for obviously decades. It's been there for a very long time. And they've recently actually turned it into a degree, which is fantastic. Yeah, so it's around 2019, I think, where they turned it into a degree. And that actually opens so sort of, there's such a huge opportunity for nurses who go through it now, because they actually get, not that the diploma is any less of a qualifier, but I think it does give you, to a certain extent, quite a leg up in terms of many, many things. Obviously, experience is still king. So to the diploma nurses, it's still fine. We are still good.
You're still valid.
We're still valid. I think I was very worried about that when that actually turned into a whole thing, because you worry. You're obviously very concerned about what's actually going to happen to you.
Do I not exist now?
Exactly, yeah. I was like, what's happening? Because you have a diploma, and the lady or the nurse who qualified 2 years after you suddenly has a degree. But no, it's the only thing that's changed is obviously the year and the credit maps, and I think we spent our whole last year doing clinics, and I think I'm obviously not 100% sure what their curriculum is now, but I do think that they maybe spend a little bit more time in clinics, so they have that middle year where they can still do theory and do their practical work, where we primarily did theory in our first year and then did a little bit of practical work in between the theory year, which was grueling, and then you move straight into hospital, the clinical aspect in that last year, which is still grueling, but it's so nice. So yes, that's where I'd start looking, and then obviously your best friend is just to go to the university's website, check out OP. You can only study it at this stage at the University of Victoria. I do know there are talks of maybe doing it in Bloem at the UFS.
Okay.
Not sure exactly what's happening on that front. And then also Namibia. I think they also have a vet school, but I'm not sure if they actually do nurses. So yeah, that's where I'd start.
Yeah.
So not a lot of universities accommodate.
No, it's only UP at this stage. Onderstepoort, so the vets and the nurses study together. And they obviously your final year students will qualify together. So it's really nice coming into practice and suddenly you work with all these people that you studied with.
Yeah.
yes, and it's life changing.
Yeah.
And you're so comfortable. It's so nice working with them because you haven't seen them obviously in years.
Yeah.
I have, for example, our surgeon that we have at the moment, we study together.
Oh, that's
Lovely.
nice.
And when I heard he was coming, I'm like, yes. yes.
I know you.
Yeah. You're a good person.
Yeah. He's a good man, Savannah.
Yes.
And in terms of animal technicians, vet technicians, what is the main difference between them and vet nurses? And can you do the other to qualify for the other?
So I'm not exactly sure if it will give you sort of a leg up to do the animal health technician to study nursing. I can't imagine it wouldn't give you some sort of leg up, yeah, a little bit. But so two different qualifications.
Okay.
Animal health technicians are primarily trained in large animals. So I think their role was initially started to work primarily with government facilities because they're the people who go out onto farms and vaccinate, animals, cattle, dogs, cats, sort of. I think their role was created to do that work, especially in communities that need someone to go there because your private vets don't necessarily have the opportunity to go out there. So that's the main difference. Obviously, they can work in a vet clinic, and we have an animal health technician working with us, and she's trained under nurses for so long that she's basically
a nurse.
Yes, and she's such a jewel to work with. But she also goes out with Dr. Watkins. He does most of our large animal work, so she tends to go out with him sometimes, and then she actually lives her large animal dream as well.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
living the dream.
So that's the main difference there. Obviously, like I said, we very much the same, and we restricted to what we can do without veterinary supervision, but they're more trained in large animal aspects more than we are. Obviously, we do a little bit of everything, and we are a little bit more focused and more geared towards small animals. At Onderstepoort, we do have clinical rotations where we go through everything, so equines, large animals, ICU, outpatients, all that kind of thing. But their diplomas primarily are focused on large animals.
So you being a vet nurse and also you've bottle fed kittens, what advice would you give to someone who's considering bottle feeding a kitten or like a puppy as well? What advice would you give them?
So any new pet owner, right? Do your research. Before you get a dog, before you get a cat, before you get a guinea pig, before you get anything, always do your research because we all have fallen into that trap where we get this animal and we're like, not exactly what I thought this was going to be. So for starters, before you take anything home, be sure that you know exactly what this will entail and how this will change your household, because it will change your household. And then secondly, please just get them their vaccinations. Please get them their vaccinations. Puppies need at least 3 to 4 and kittens need at least 3. Please get them their vaccinations. With regards to... Yes, it's so important.
Anmari's pleading with you guys.
Yes, get those vaccinations. With regards to bottle feeding, that's obviously a whole different ballgame. It's a whole new challenge on its own. We recently had a lovely lady coming in who bottle fed. I think she had one kitten where she bottle fed it from literally like 4 to 5 hours old. So she had that kitten from like that age, and that's phenomenal because those kittens don't do well without mom. So it's a whole different ball game trying to bottle feed or bottle raise any kind of sort of animal. And you need to be sure that you're giving them the right nutrients. So don't give baby birds Prenutro.
Please.
And so kitten milk for kittens, dog milk for dogs. Just keep it simple. It's the most important rule.
Give them what they assign.
Exactly.
No fresh milk.
No fresh milk. That's actually cats don't do well with milk. Cats can't actually digest it, so it could cause quite a bit of gastric upset. And obviously with your puppies and so on, especially large breed puppies, if you add milk into their diets, the calcium can become too excessive and they can actually have growth deformities. So it's super important to stick to the breed and stick to the species.
Crazy how we grew up watching cartoons and they were being fed fresh milk.
No, look, we are living on a dairy farm. Our dogs also drank a lot of fresh milk, and they were mostly fine, but there are these cases that just aren't, and that's you don't want to take that chance because you never know.
You don't want that on the conscience.
Exactly, and you're working with the biological system, so you can't gauge what's going to happen to who.
That's true.
You just mentioned that obviously now, when you studied, it was a diploma, right? Right now, it's a degree. Obviously, the vet industry is progressing, and there are new things that are being introduced, new techniques, new ways of doing things. How do you ensure that you stay up to date with that?
So we have to do CPD, so that's continual professional development.
Okay.
So a lot of different professions will do that. I know accountants do that, doctors will do that, human nurses will do that. We regulated by a council, by a body, and they ensure that you stay up to date with these CPD points and these CPD things. And by doing that, you make sure that you don't get too far behind and that you still sort of practice relevant and modern medicine, because that's obviously things are changing and you need to change, you need to adapt. But one thing I think we often overlook is just your peers, the people you work with, because they also know so many things that you don't know.
True.
Yes.
You always learn every day.
Just continuing to listen to their conversations, and if they have fun facts, just to actually listen to those fun facts, because sometimes they're these bizarre things that you've never really heard, and then you actually grow from that as well. So that's also very important with regards to just keeping up with everything and learning.
So the technique is just keep learning.
Keep learning. You will never ever know everything.
Yeah.
She did mention there's no age limit.
No age limit, but you will never ever know everything.
That's true.
And just keeping an open mind and just sort of staying humble, because if there's anything that will humble you, it's this career.
You think you know, and then you find out you actually don't know.
Yes, no, actually you don't.